Hello and good morning. We are with May CRC Meetup. We are talking to Charlie McKenzie and super excited to do so. He is with Left Coast Holdings, but I've known him for quite a while now. And so why don't we just start off by letting you introduce yourself and talk about your background and what you've done, and then let's talk about what you're doing now.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Allison. It's really good to catch up. I'm grateful for the opportunity. So I started out my career when it came to growing plants at UGA. I was a hort graduate, and then after that, I got into growing ornamental plants. And I worked for one of the top greenhouse producers in the country, Tagawa Greenhouses. I worked for them in New Mexico, managing one of their facilities, mostly bedding plants, poinsettias, chrysanthemums, and really enjoyed that. Did that for about 4 years down there. And then that company was getting into hemp CBD back when really it all kicked off. That might have been 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. And so they were trying to get an operation up and going. And so I moved from New Mexico to Colorado and worked with them for about a year and a half, getting that all set up. That was my first experience farming cannabis outdoors at scale. And then same with greenhouse growing, doing a lot of mother stock production. And so I had a lot of small successes and some really big failures. A lot of things that, I learned from and couldn't have been more grateful for the opportunity. Those failures were some of the best learning lessons I had when it came to growing. So after that, I kind of decided I wanted to take on a different opportunity, and I worked for BioBest for about a year and a half, doing IPM consulting, technical specialty with them, and then ended up doing that for myself with a group of other folks consulting for high value crops, and that was Crop Walk and Crop Talk. And the traveling, the spending time away from the family got to be a little bit too much. And my wife said, "Hey, remember you got into all this because you love growing plants. What do you think about growing plants again?" So I kind of took a step back, and that's what led me to Northern Michigan. And I've been here for 2.5 years now and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, so tell us about where you are now. It's massive. You're handling a lot. It's very impressive. So how's the transition been? Because you've been in large scale growing, but it wasn't marijuana.
No.
So tell us what you do and how that differs, and what those differences are, and what do you love, what do you hate? Tell us all about it.
I gotcha. Yeah. So the transition into large scale outdoor, THC regulated cannabis was definitely, it was a difficult transition in certain ways, and it wasn't, it was seamless in other ways. I think the things that were most difficult for me were the actual building, maintaining different systems that I'd never maintained before, that were already on the farm, operating different pieces of equipment. But what I came to find, and I'm very lucky to have, is that the group of folks that I work with have those skills and are, some of the brightest and most knowledgeable in those different things when it comes to folks I know. So luckily, I don't really have to worry about those things as much. Now I get to learn a lot from them. So I'm really grateful for that, because, there's a lot of irrigation and field design and layout and things like that I would have never thought about. But with certain folks' farming experience from, a few generations back on that land, that's really helped me. I focused mostly on plants and people and operations management. So, facilities management wasn't something that I really had a ton of experience with. And I think that has been the biggest challenge when it comes to that transition. But when it comes to what was parallel or, fit in with my skill set, was the people. And I think the coolest thing about transitioning from ornamentals and hemp CBD out in Colorado to licensed regulated cannabis here in Michigan is that it's my people, and I'm working with now I think we're somewhere near 60 folks that really, really care about the plant and about the people they're working with. And so it's, I don't want to say family because we're not a family. We have our own families at home, but we are a community. And so I think, working with those folks and building the team was something that I've really enjoyed doing. And I think that's where my skill set from previous has played in the most right now. And so currently, I'm directing a team, like I said, close to 60 when we're at full rip.
So
But
that's
we're
just of the cultivators.
yeah. So just in general, like all of the managers, cultivators, growers, metric team. Some of those are contract laborers at certain points doing different things for us. For instance, like T-post installation. But it's a large scale operation when it comes to how many people are on the ground. And we propagate all of our own clones. So right now, we've got, I can't remember square footage wise, but if you were to measure it by lights, we have about 210 lights worth of moms that we're cloning off of each week. So we're cutting about 30,000 to 35,000 each week, 5 days throughout the week. And then we're sticking that same amount. And we're doing that for about 8 weeks to fulfill all of our needs. And then, different needs for external customers. So that's like what we're in the thick of right now. But then, we'll transition here into planting the outdoor field here in the next couple weeks. And then it's a lot of plant maintenance, and we've got a few indoor facilities and greenhouses, one greenhouse, soon to be two, but the rest indoor. And so when everything settles down during the summer, I get to refocus on what's going on in the indoor. If I was able to let any focus go, I think it just like you have to have that much more focus. You can't let anything go. But the biggest thing that I would say I do right now is just support a ton of really talented people. The coolest thing that I've seen happen here since I've been here is that, a lot of folks that didn't have any experience in leadership or experience in growing at scale that have stepped up, taken on a lot of responsibility and have shown that they're capable of doing a lot. And so seeing them flourish and then just being able to support them do what they do best every day is pretty much my daily job.
Wow. Yeah, having a good team goes a long way. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how talented one or two people are. If the team doesn't mesh and work well together, it's not going to work. So kudos to having a team that large that's doing great things. So, okay, that's a lot of space.
Yeah.
Once you're done in propagation season, what do you do with all that space where there were moms?
So that goes back to flowering production. So the propagation space from where we're actually sticking and having the clones put out roots, that gets transitioned back into more of like a trimming flex space. That's a small building in and of itself. But the other two areas where the moms are at, the greenhouse and the other indoor building, go into flowering production. So on the farm site there, about half the year, those controlled environments are dedicated to moms. And then the other half of the year, we flower plants in them. And we're kind of doing the same thing with our indoor facility. That's 9 miles. I think I actually figured it out the other day. 9 miles away from the farm, and that indoor facility, in total, I think we're operating about, what is it? We're operating about 180 lights currently there. So, you know, some of those are moms right now. And as soon as those moms are killed there in late June, early July, that'll transition right back into flowering as well.
So total, do you have a rough idea of how many pounds, trimmed pounds you produce a year? And I know
Well,
every year it goes up. So maybe tell me what last year was.
so last year was unique because we planted late on some of the outdoor. It was a rush to expand. We got the ability to expand, and we didn't get it in the ground until late July. So this is our first year growing the crop full term, full season. Those extra 40 acres and having a full 50 acres that's going to be planted in the month of June. I would say right now, the way we put together our conservative metrics, we're expecting every bit of 2 pounds of total biomass per plant. And that's very conservative. When we do all of our, our financial planning, that's what we use. But we've typically seen anywhere from 15 to 30% more than that, depending on what the cultivar is, So that being said, cultivar selection's everything, right? We've seen some duds out there, 5,000 plants of what was not a good yielder, what got ravaged by septoria. So that's a big part of what we're trying to do this year is, really hone in on what are those ones that we can rely on, because that's truly the difference, I think, between outdoor and indoor right now. Is from an indoor perspective, it's really difficult if we don't have a ton of variety. Like if we don't have a ton of cultivars, or we're just like so good at growing one unique cultivar or multiple unique cultivars, then it's not going to sell through nearly as well. But like with the outdoor, that price point that people are looking for, if they're buying the smokable flower from the outdoor, it's not really something where that consumer is like, oh man, I gotta have this new strain every week. They end up saying, oh, super boof, $40 an ounce. I'll take it every single week if you'll give it to me. Right. So it's kind of like the Busch Light drinker versus your IPA drinker. And so when we focus on outdoor, we're trying to fulfill that smokable flower market and supply our processor that's on site with the biomass it needs to create distillate.
Got you. Oh, I got so many questions. Where to focus? Okay, so we're talking about varieties.
Yep.
And I've certainly been through this with type 3 in the South, starting from nowhere and just wanting to grow a lot, and you're really just gambling, right?
Yeah.
In Michigan, I imagine you had at least a few starters that maybe somebody had grown and could validate in that area. Maybe not.
Yep.
But how in the world do you choose what to grow? And one big mistake on cultivar selection, with septoria, could be pretty crucial. So how do you even plan around that? And then once you have your 4 or 5 key ones that'll work, how important is it to keep squeezing in new ones, specifically for outdoor?
Yeah. Outdoor wise, I think when it started, when I first got here, I kind of went with what they were doing in terms of cultivar selection that first year, just to see how it performed, and understand what was going on in northern Michigan. And right away, I understood that there's a lot of pathogens. We don't have nearly the pest pressure currently, and that's not to say it won't increase, because it's every year you're seeing it increase for sure. But we don't have nearly the pest pressure that like the Southeast does, whereas we have just a crazy amount of pathogen pressure. We're still dealing with insects, but the pathogens are what I'm mostly focused on from a selection process. And so that second year, it was like, all right, now we need to get as many cultivars as we can and put them out in the field and figure out like which ones are actually going to perform from a resistance standpoint, and then how does it yield and is it marketable? And so those are kind of the the three things that we were looking for, because like you said, with septoria, depending on how bad the infection is, it's just a race to get it out of the field, because at some point it'll creep in on your buds, and you're just done for at that point. Now, from a biomass perspective, that product definitely degrades the overall yield, I think. I mean, we haven't done studies to really hone in on how much it would affect what you pull from an extraction standpoint, but I do think at a certain point that, you know, there's diminishing return and you have some loss. But it is what we are able to salvage. You know, if that cultivar was just ravaged, we'll get it out of the field as quickly as possible, and it's going to end up being biomass for extraction. And luckily, we have that ability to extract it. If you're a grower that doesn't have that kind of processing capability, the cultivar selection is that much more important, because, you know, it's like any other producer out there that's doing any sort of agricultural production. You know, you've got your best product, and then you've got all the byproducts, and you're trying to figure out how to make money off of everything so that you actually get that margin that you're looking for. And for us, we're able to take the scraps and the trims and the things that other folks might not look at and say that's valuable. We're able to do something with it. So for us, it's not as important maybe, but from a total business standpoint, and from a, like, my heart as a grower, it makes a big difference walking into your field and seeing plants that are fighting septoria versus just like getting taken over. So this year we selected down from, man, we put out, I want to say we put out 30 last year, in pretty decent numbers, 30 different cultivars, and we're down to 12 in total on the farm, but there's about 7 that are very high in quantity, like how much we're actually going to plant and how many moms we have. And those 7 were selected based on septoria being the first, and then yield. But I'll be completely straight up, we have not found something ourselves that is resistant to septoria where I'm going to put it out in the field and go, whew, not even worried about it. I haven't found anything like that. There are people who have claims that they have different selections from this past year that are very resistant, not completely, but, you know, very negligible in terms of what it's doing to the plant. And I'll take that. A couple spots here and there isn't going to hurt my feelings on the leaves, but, you know, at some point we're definitely leaving yield and quality on the table if septoria is taking over the plant.
For sure. So, you know, when you're choosing varieties to trial, you know, where is that coming from? Are you just ordering
Great
the seeds from breeders, or is there a breeder maybe in the Northeast that's specifically working on selection against this, or are you kind of, again, just gambling every time you're bringing in a new variety?
So I would say most of it's gambling. Some of it's hearsay as to this worked, and then we'll go find it. So, you know, get a cut. Some of it this year specifically is pheno hunting out in the field. So we're doing, I think we're doing about 1,000 different beans that we're popping, and it's going to be 100% solely focused on trying to understand how resistant they are. I mean, that's the selection process. So that would be, this year's our first big year in terms of going out there and finding packs from people who are saying that this lineage has resistance, or, you know, whatever they claim, and testing them against it. We'll see how well that goes. You know, with that big of a potential pheno hunt, how many problems you could have just in general. So we're gonna test that out. But I would say that that's probably our best bet right now, because there's not, from what I've found, there's only a few different breeders that are like honing in specifically saying, hey, septoria is a big problem. We got to do something about it. And we're selecting and making decisions, you know, now and for the future because of it. And whoever gets there first or can end up getting a lineup of those things is going to have so much business in the Midwest. It's going to, and I don't know what septoria is like in, let's say, east of Ohio. Like, I don't know what outdoor production.
I don't hear a lot of complaints about it. I think it's mainly East Coast, but mostly
Yeah,
up toward.
so
Yeah.
someone's going to make a lot of money, and I'd definitely be there lined up paying
Yeah,
for it.
customer. Yeah. Well, wow. So and I've seen this myself, and it looks like somebody's just set the field on fire. I mean, it's
Oh,
insane.
yeah.
It is insane what you have to get through and, accept a certain amount of loss.
Yep.
When you're talking to indoor growers, it's a different world. It's an absolute different world. Now you don't have to tell your secrets, but I imagine there's constant spraying of
Yep.
compliant products.
Yep.
If I'm thinking about caterpillars and spraying BT and other products that are out there, I'm hoping it's knocking 20-30% down, but it's not a lot.
Right.
There's still damage. Are you seeing the same thing with septoria where, it's helping a little, but at some point you've got to weigh out the cost of the input product, right?
I love the way you're going with this, because the cannabis grower in me, the indoor craft grower in me says, damn it, we're going to spray everything. We're going to spray every day. Well,
Yeah.
but the outdoor grower in me says we don't have those resources to do that. One, last year we were able to get at most per week 3 sprays on, and so we're using a PTO driven electrostatic sprayer from On Target spray systems to spray the crop, and we're able to get in that 50 acres 3 times per week. Now, I'm not completely convinced, but I feel strong that each spray event is actually potentially a spreading event. And so my thought process is we've narrowed down our tank mixes so that we can spray once per week, at the most 2 times per week, and try to combine as many things as possible that we know we need to get in there, whether that's for insect pests, whether that's for plant nutrition, or for fighting pathogens, but trying to get these tank mixes so that we are not, one, putting the labor and all the chemical out into the crop,
Yeah.
and spending the money, but two, maybe we're creating this environment, because here in northern Michigan, I would love to show you what it looks like over a 24-hour period and like what the mornings look like. But during the growing season, there is never a morning where everything isn't completely covered in dew.
Yeah.
And so what I'm wondering is, if we're spraying at night, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., we start spraying just as soon as the sun goes down,
Right.
and we're getting that crop moist. How long does the crop stay moist for? Like, is it staying moist for the entire night into the next day? And we are essentially just creating this environment for anything and everything that we don't really want to infect us. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Or is staying wet for longer, like is good with many organic products? Is that better
Yeah.
because it's able to stay active there on the leaf doing its thing?
Maybe,
Okay.
yeah, like a so currently what we're spraying the most of is xylitol, oxyphos, and we tried different copper products. Didn't really see a ton of success. Xylitol and oxyphos are mostly just a suppression. We don't
Yeah.
really ever see anything beyond that. Now, this year we are running trials through drip with different high concentrations of nutrients. So with Scott over at New Age, he's pretty convinced that there's some sort of pathway with copper helping the plant fight septoria. And so maybe we can see if high rates of copper will do something. But Scott's also convinced, more so than copper, that there's something to do with phosphorus and how the plant utilizes phosphorus in flowering, especially because septoria, for us at least, the first couple weeks of flower, you know, from planting to the first couple weeks of flower, you don't even notice it.
Right.
And then
Boom.
it's a flare real quick. And so, you know, that's also the same time we kind of changed fertilizer regimes. Are we seeing something there? I don't know.
That's a great question. Oh, if there was only a university working on this, right? Research
Hey,
group.
that's absolutely it. For me, the two things that keep me up at night are when it comes to pests and pathogens are septoria and aphids. And aphids this past year out was pretty bad.
Aphids.
Both. So I've had experience with both of them now. Knock on wood. Currently, we're past our root aphid problem. We suffered for a few months until we reset those rooms and gave a 7-day window where there were no plant activity in those areas, and really clean.
To have to make.
Yep, it was a fight because you know, I was spending way more money than what made financial sense in trying to treat the problem, and it was almost like the root aphids were laughing at it. Yeah, I mean, every product that I could find that someone had said they'd have experience with, that we are able to apply, was applied in multiple fashions: drench, sprench, sprayed, you name it. And we saw reductions here and there, but then you'd see it flare back up, and it was ultimately the right decision. And it set us on the path. You know, the past harvests have been exactly what we were hoping for from a clean facility. So that was the best decision to make. And, you know, at some point, someone's going to find something that works to set them back or kill them. But currently, to me, it's just making damn sure you know what's coming in on your plants. And also, from a biosecurity standpoint, I'm not entirely sure that our infestation came from incoming plant material, like from someone else, or if it came from our outdoor farm and then to the indoor farm.
There's so many pathways. I mean, it could have been an employee that grows at home that thought they showered, but they didn't wash their hair, and one's hanging out in their hair. Even if they change clothes when they get to work, you know, it's just impossible to be fully clean if you're growing up.
Even we have a shower in an apartment next to our indoor grow. And so if someone gets into some sort of situation where they encounter something and they got to keep working, we can get them to go shower. But that's still like not always gonna be the problem.
I mean, unless you're timing someone and measuring the soap that's in their hair. I mean, if they're just saying, oh, I'm just gonna do a quick rinse off, like, you know, those little things cling to stuff. I mean, that's what they do. So
I got a great story for you here. So when I was with Crop Walk, I was coming from a customer in Atlanta, and he had a huge green peach aphid infestation in his veggie leafy greens operation. And it was so bad that, you know, anything that I was wearing was definitely something that had to be taken off after I got out. So I did that, was good to go. And then the next day I got on a plane to California. I pulled out my laptop on the plane. Sure enough, there was an aphid
Oh, no
with
way.
me on the plane going to all places, California, right? The most strict of quarantine importation places. So I squished it immediately, obviously, but that was a light bulb for me where it was like, holy shit, really? Like you tried everything you could to make sure that you were clean when you left there, and it still found a way with you.
Still finds a way. Yeah. God, that's so tough. So tough. Okay, so we got bugs, we got lots of people, we got lots of outdoor problems. How do you dry all this stuff?
That's the biggest question we get, and it was the biggest question I had last year when we expanded when we did. So the 2 years, these past 2 years that we produced 10 acres the first year and 50 the second year, we did hang dry. And the first year we did it with pallet racks and a shit ton of trellis netting hung between the pallet rack sections vertical. So we just had a ton of nets in the pallet rack sections, and that was super inefficient, took forever, wasn't what we wanted in terms of quality, didn't fit the amount of volume that we needed to. So we reevaluated, rekeyed, and we linked up with Jay from Dry Flower, and Jay got us set up with his hanging system, and that allowed us to go from 3 buildings that we were hanging in down to 2 buildings and still produce double the amount of smokable flower out of those areas, just because we were that much more efficient with our
So
space.
tell me what a dry flower system is. I'm not
So
familiar.
dry flower is the way that we used it in our buildings. It was 2x4s that would fasten into the floor and then up into whatever sort of ceiling you have. So ours is 10, and we would just find the studs, and it was fastened like that. But he has a bunch of different types of fasteners that can almost be floating, or but in the end we use 2x4s for the expense. And then it's a J hook that bolts into the 2x4. You have those ever so far apart, and you put a bar on that those 2 J hooks. So now you've got a bar that you hang these hangers on that he's fabricated and designed. And these hangers, the ones we have, are about 41 inches long. They have ribs on the top. They're very lightweight. He has 2 different styles where you can hang it onto the bar, or you can push it onto the bar where it's like flush with the bar. And we have a lot of those. Those are like the pro style, he calls them. But essentially what you're able to do is fill those hangers outside in the crop, wherever you're harvesting. So if you're not too far away from your building, you can do it right there on a staging rack, fill all those hangers with your colas after you're cutting them out of the field, and 2 people can pick up the rack and walk it all the way into the dry room, get on a scissor lift or get on a ladder, walk it up and hang it. And, I think we were putting 100 wet pounds per pole or section. So the efficiency was just crazy. I mean, it went from us feeling like we were drowning to like, hey, when can we load this room again?
Wow. Okay, so it streamlines the process. You're not having to pile it in your indoor and then people grab it and hang it up.
Yep.
Just cut it, put it on, hang.
Yeah, it's very efficient from a drying standpoint too, because you can utilize your whole cubic footage in a very climate conscious way from an environmental standpoint. The way that Jay helps you design it with the load that's going in there and what you have from a dehumidification and HVAC standpoint. So like we were just able to dry a lot more flower in the same space. Plus, it was way easier to get in there. So that's the the small bit of space that we had for drying flower. The thing that really changed the game for us last year from an industrial commercial perspective was we have two 36-foot diameter shivers grain bin drying silos.
Whoa.
And those silos are what dry the majority of our lower tier smokable flower, $40 ounce type material, and all of our biomass. 100% the best solution I've ever personally seen for drying biomass. It's an investment, but it's pretty cool.
So you have to bucket first, right?
Wet bucked. Yep.
How is that?
Well, so the first couple years, we were trying all sorts of different things to wet buck, and then we just got real barbaric with it, Allison. And we just get out into the field with the plant still growing, and you rip the buds off with the plant in the ground by hand. Yep. The next step in this whole automation of outdoor drying of large scale cannabis to me is what the guys over at, and I think it's Terpene Belt Farms is their name. They're in, I think they're in California and Colorado, but they have a machine that it's a bean harvester that's been modified, and it strips the plant and makes it look exactly like our plants look after we get done with it.
Wow. Yeah. We attempted to wet harvest once, and it's intense. It's intense. I mean, it's hard on the guy's hands. It's just that extra water causes it to be extra sticky and tough. So
it's a nightmare.
You must be barbaric out there.
Yeah, it's a ton of nitrile dipped gloves that end up being stuck together and thrown away after a day of work. It's pretty gnarly. But when a whole swath of 10,000 plants have been harvested and all that's left standing are skeletons, it's a pretty cool little look.
Oh yeah, you could make that into some Halloween something or another, a little maze out there. Jeez. Okay, so what happens to all the keef from the silo mixer? Like, because it's got to go to the bottom, right?
No, it's definitely there. So there's a lot of it that we collect, and it ends up getting extracted. I don't know necessarily if the guys are making really, really heavy hot batches or they're trying to distribute that across the batches that they're doing, whether they're running straight keef or what, but there's a lot. And those machines are definitely my first foray into that kind of agricultural production, because it's a grain bin dryer that was modified from corn, and then they designed it for hemp, and then from there it's gotten onto the THC scene out here in Michigan. But it's a unique piece of equipment. I think that it fits a certain end goal and objective, and it's definitely not the right objective for a majority of people. So it's a unique piece of equipment for a unique farm that has unique products that are different than what you're necessarily seeing a lot of growers focus in on, whether that's high quality greenhouse or indoor, what that may be.
Incredible. I want to see those one day so bad.
Oh yeah, come on out. You can it's something special when before the guy that taught me how to run it told me that I should turn the fans off when I'm stirring it. I used to have to wear the ski goggles to make sure that I wouldn't get blasted in the face with keef and whatnot. And I told him about that, and he was like, "Man, you are dumb." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Why don't you turn the fans off?" I was like, yeah, that's a really good idea. I should start doing that when I'm stirring. So I learned, but
into the instruction manual. Oh, that's wild. Okay, so I know you got a lot of people to get back, people and plants to get back to. But why don't you end by telling us kind of what does your crystal ball say? All sorts of craziness is happening within the hemp cannabinoid sector across the US, federally, everything's changing and turning, from your position there in Michigan. What do you think is going to happen within 5 years?
Oh man. My guess is probably worse than everyone else's, just in terms of I keep my head down and try to grow as much cannabis and enjoy it the whole time. But my feelings on it and what I'm thinking are that you're definitely going to continue to see a consolidation of folks that can actually produce cannabis at scale, whatever scale that is for the state they're in, or um, the market they're in. But folks that can't focus on cost of goods sold, and really nail those down won't be in business in 5 years. I think that part of focusing on cost of goods sold is scale. So certain folks are going to win because they're bigger and have more purchasing power and can do it for less, just by the sheer fact of how big it is. But I guarantee, because I call myself a hash head, and love nothing more than fine craft cannabis. There will always be that, and I think over time that will grow. Like, more people will like craft cannabis because there will be more people in general that use cannabis. So I think that's not going anywhere, and that'll only get bigger, and it'll only get headier, and it'll only get wookier, or whatever you want to call it. You know, and I'm all for it. I love
Yeah,
it. It's got its place. I'll be there. But I also know from a business perspective and serving the market perspective, there's 95% of the market that doesn't want anything to do with that. And
right,
so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for serving those individuals.
right.
And I think that's where the scale comes in. I really personally, if someone were to give me $1 million or $10 million, I'm going to need more based on what I'm about to tell you. Someone gave me $10 million and said, go out and build whatever you want, it
Mhm.
would be a greenhouse and outdoor operation.
Yeah,
That would be, I wouldn't do the indoor, because I know for a fact that if we could control the greenhouse climate the way we wanted to, greenhouse is superior.
yeah,
So that would be my personal opinion, and what I would do going forward if I was looking to make an investment, or you know, think about the next 5 years.
very interesting. Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be crazy. I think a lot's changing. I'm a little bit worried with the battle of the cannabinoid market and hemp and the
Yeah,
call
that's
it
definitely.
marijuana market.
Yep.
They're certainly going at it both, from both sides, and I see from both sides why they are going at it. Um, so we'll see how it shapes out, but I think we're all here, whether we're stoners or potheads, hash heads, whatever. We're here for it, and we love the plant, so we'll keep riding the wave, right?
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, I just want to be able to farm. Like I love growing cannabis, and growing the people that love growing cannabis, and being a part of that community, and being a better farmer every year. That's what I love so much about outdoor cannabis. Indoor scratches my manufacturing and
Yeah.
detail oriented itch, but the farming, um, there's just something so, I don't know, rewarding about being out there and seeing that many plants, and something come together like that.
Mhm. And
So
year over year, just seeing how much better you get, and your selections, and your
yeah,
team, and everything. It's a beautiful thing. It
yeah,
is.
there's nothing like harvesting in the indoor, cleaning it that next day, and planting it the next day, and,
Yeah.
and starting all over again, because that is an accomplishment, no doubt. But when May hits, and things start waking up around here in northern Michigan, you're like, oh boy, here we go, 50 acres.
Yep. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Educational and enjoyable as always. So thank you for what you're doing up there. Keep pushing it hard. Keep being a leader for the industry to watch, not just your own team, but everybody out there. So we appreciate you, and I hope to get up there this fall.
Oh, please do.
See
Really
the
grateful.
machine cranking.
Yeah, come on out. We're gonna have a ton of fun. We will we'll be here, and I can't wait to hear more about what you've got in store with your team, and all the value that y'all are providing to folks like myself and others in the industry when it comes to, leadership. I think I was telling someone the other day, they gave me like 3 different groups that they should or they could join, right? And they could get value from, and which one they should invest in. And I was like, well, that's a no-brainer if the CRC is involved.
Oh, awesome. Well, I thank you so much. I'm actually about to go join Riley, and we're going to go smoke some dubs in
Nice.
the machine. So yeah, we've been working with our smoking machine the past 3 days, and it has been awesome and amazing, but frustrating because, as you can imagine, equipment always has failures, and weed is sticky, so there's a lot of holes getting clogged. So it's particular, but some of the data we're already seeing before even sending it to the laboratory is incredible. So I can't wait to tell everybody about it, and thank you for the continued support.
Yeah, well, we'll get to hear more about that smoking study here soon, and hopefully we can learn how to create that white ash.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Adios.
Adios.